Clancy, how are you?
I'm doing amazing, Jacob. Yeah, it's Friday and we're ready for the weekend, but it's awesome to finally connect with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know we've been trying to bounce this on the calendar a couple different
Yeah.
times, but finally being able to lock it down, I'm very excited to have a conversation with you. I think one of the things I want to start with is it's really funny how we actually met and connected in the first place. Where when I was working at Nextiva and Nextiva does contact center technology, I reached out to you because I saw that you are a contact center director and it was a cold call. And I know we ended up having an initial conversation and just talking a lot of things contact center. And I love seeing that you were trying to put some content out yourself. I thought this would be a perfect fit of a conversation. But it's crazy where the connections can come from.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love it. And it's these long tail type of interactions where, that person might not even work at the same place that they worked at before, but then, the stars align. So yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think I'd love to kinda just start there. I know so I'll kinda preface, I know I'm actually not working with Nextiva anymore. Love everybody that was there, I just moved to a different, scenario, but I do know that that's still conversations that I'm a part of and I see on LinkedIn all the time, is what's going on with contact center, what's going on with customer experience as a whole, and how people are interacting with companies. I guess I'll say, like, you're really in the weeds of the space. What are you seeing that is top of mind for people inside contact center and interactions right now?
One thing that is, and just to be clear, like my niche is kind of small to mid-sized contact centers. So we're talking less than 100 agents, things like that. It doesn't mean things don't scale to thousands or whatever, but that's just kind of my niche. And but one thing that I've noticed is that there's a really strong push to, I think everybody's doing it right now, but they're really pushing to leverage AI somehow into the contact centers so that AI can do some of the kind of the easy work on behalf of the customer. And then you can leverage your team, the rest of your team, to maybe do some of the more complex tasks and conversations. And so it's an interesting time. The really interesting part is a lot of people aren't ready for AI. It's a nice idea, but you really have to prepare for it by having really good documentation, solid, up to date documentation in your infrastructure, or else the AI is going to use garbage in, garbage out. The AI is going to use bad information to solve all of your issues. So a lot of times people want to jump headfirst into it, but they first got to clean house as far as their knowledge goes.
Is that a really big piece of it that you feel like you're hearing from people in the space right now is it sounds like it's a desire to use AI without actually understanding what that means? I know you said documentation, like, what type of stuff is it? Is it the verbal training of when you work with a Gen AI bot? Is it having documents that can be referenced? Like, what do you think's a really important part for this thing?
Yeah, something has to feed the AI, right? Like as much as we'd like to think, there's the, 2,300, 2,400 stuff where AI takes over. Right now in its current state, it has to be fed by something. The AI learns from something. And usually within an organization, we're not talking about the web, right? When you talk like ChatGPT, Gemini, all of these AIs that are out there, they scrape the entire web, which is good and bad, right? It just kind of depends what it picks up on. But in an organization, it's going to be scraping from the data that you give it, that you want your customers. So if you have a service desk and you want AI to answer questions for customers before one of your employees does, and kind of clip off some of those easier types of scenarios, you better darn well make sure that the information that AI is using to help the customer is on point. And so that's what I think a lot of people might not be prepared for. Don't bother wasting your money on AI until you have the proper resources, whether it's knowledge or a series of documents or whatever it is that you're feeding your AI with has to be on point.
It definitely seems like I like what you said there about the pros and cons of ChatGPT or Gronk or one of these larger language models that are pulling from the whole internet because when you widen the scope, you're going to widen the result. So it'll be harder to narrow down exactly what you need. And I mean, I've played around with ChatGPT. I use it every day of my life.
Yeah.
You have to narrow it down. And that's even just from me using it as a salesperson to just like clinch processes down. I could imagine from a organizational perspective, it's We need to go really narrow so it doesn't pull extravagant data, but we have to make it tailored to exactly what we need it to be able to do. And what it feels like to me from what you're saying is maybe an organization is thinking the magical power of ChatGPT I've
Yeah.
seen and heard of is going to magically understand the nuance of my business. But what
Right.
it feels like to me is it's almost just like a basic rule of SOP creation and scalability, where if there's not documentation of standard operating procedures for your people, for your service desk, you're not even going to be able to train a person, let alone an AI bot.
Yes, 100%. That is that you're reading it correctly. The crazy part is that it's not just lots of like some places have really good documentation, but then they have the challenge of duplication of documentation, right? So it's out there in four different places, and heaven forbid there's a slightly different message on, two of the places, and so now you're giving different answers to your customers. And then the other thing that needs to happen for a little while is even with really good knowledge or documents or whatever you're feeding your AI with, another thing that's critical is you have to vet the answers the AI is giving, because even with really solid information, it still might have it's called hallucinations is what people call it in the AI business. Is occasionally it'll just hallucinate and give some oddball answer that is nowhere near the ballpark of what it's supposed to or what you would expect it to. And then that's where you have to really train the AI to provide a different result. And that's why I don't think you'll ever, well, never say never, right? Never say never, but it's going to be really hard to remove humans from the process of delivering AI. You could be more efficient, sure, but there still needs to be a human that interferes or vets the AI and make sure it's delivering answers that are correct.
Absolutely. I remember for most of my time at Nextiva, the conversations were around how can we empower the humans? It was never about what can we do to replace. Even for the stuff that was a fully AI generated bot, it wasn't so the AI can do the whole process. It's what can we do to capture information that it doesn't require human interaction and then empower the next conversation. And I know that was always a big piece. What do you think like the balance of that is? Where do you see in like an optimal environment where it's AI doing some part of it, and then when does it go to the human? What type of metrics are affected? Like where do you really see that going optimally?
Yeah, when I think about that, when you said that, the first thing that I went to is customer effort, right? And there are different ways to measure customer effort. A lot of times it's through a survey of the customer just saying how hard or easy it was to maneuver through your systems. But there are other ways to capture it. But I would say whatever is going to ease the burden of your customer most, that's the path you should take. Yes, you got to watch out for your teams, right? I'm a big believer that if you take care of your team, then your team will take care of your customers, right? But also, a lot of these companies, they also have to produce a profit. And so, if you're going to err on one side or the other, you should probably err on the side of reducing the friction for your customers. So, if you're going to use AI, you may as well do so in a way that's going to make life easier for whoever you're serving.
Have you guys started using AI in any of the contact centers that you've worked in or oversee now?
Not yet, but we are testing it out.
Nice.
It's a little tricky in a university environment, but we do have kind of like our own instance of AI so that the data doesn't go out to the world. And so once you have that set up, it's yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Like AI is amazing. Like because here's the thing, what we're wanting to do is leverage AI for people to access our knowledge base. And thank goodness I have an amazing knowledge team. Our knowledge base is top notch, it's accurate, it's exactly what we would want to feed an AI bot with. And the crazy part is right now, when somebody say searches for how to reset their password or whatever, right? They kind of have to make sure that they're using the correct terms to search for the particular article. Like it has to include the word password, or it has to, there's certain ways that they have to search. They literally just type a sentence about what they're trying to do. And then the AI should know, okay, it's going to go through and do whatever it does. and it's going to go and find the exact article that lines up with the sentence that they just typed out. It doesn't have, we're not looking for specific search terms. We don't have to worry about metadata. All that's out the window with AI. And we don't have to worry about what types of words will customers say when they're trying to look for a, no, AI has all that taken care of as long as you have, again, a good solid base of articles that it can go reach.
It's because the AI is smart. Like, that's the part that I'm starting to realize, like, even in the last 6 months or so of just using ChatGPT, like, the idea, because I have the paid version where you can do a project, and people used to think you have to code a GPT bot to be able to accomplish what a project now accomplishes, where for my job, I input the way that I would normally speak or the emails I would normally write or the summarizations of calls that I typically have, and it gets to a point where it starts to learn how somebody talks, and it can anticipate what it assumes you're trying to get as a result. I can imagine with what you're describing, it'll understand customer sentiment and the end goal without the specific words, which just feels very like revolutionary to the space. Just to think that the idea, it used to have to be keywords, or it used to have to be if a customer like the way you build code, if this, then this, then this, then this, way too linear. We have this broad scope of AI like progression now that blows my mind every single time. Like ChatGPT recommends things now. It'll go, "Yeah, I just summarized this for you. Do you want me to create a slide deck for you?" And it'll push. And I think that anticipatory nature of it now, that could be kind of where I see the future going in at least one sense or another.
Yeah, and Jacob, and I know this weird. Maybe this is varying from the topic at hand, but like a couple of articles recently, and one was it was a study done by our business college, the Eller Business College at the University of Arizona, and then I think it was validated by a couple of other studies. But people have such a weird, I'll say weird. They have such a weird, I guess, way of looking at AI. If you admit openly to your coworkers that you use AI like on a daily basis, like what you just said, yeah, because like it's amazing that you do. You should. Everybody should. They actually look at that, like they look at you like as a little bit less than. Like, wait, like you got to use AI to do your job, or like it's weird. Like it's almost like it's a knock against you if you admit openly that you're using AI to like write emails or to spin up projects or whatever. What they don't realize is, yeah, sure, I could do it, but I'd blow an hour doing it, and AI will do it in about 10 seconds. Like, why is that stupid? That's really smart. But like, but people are so fearful of it. I think that they're fearful of their jobs. And so because they're fearful of their jobs, then they're going to point the finger back at other people and say, ooh, you're using AI. But like, it's crazy to me that that's the sentiment when it's such a powerful tool.
I've definitely never heard of a study like that, so thanks for sharing that. That's an interesting take that I mean, I've heard it, right? People will say that it'll replace the lazy people is like a term I've heard or
Yeah.
anything like that. I think it's almost a mix of, if you're gonna use it for efficiency, it should be because you're replacing the time you would have spent doing said task to capitalize on the additional time and double down on what we're capable of. I know the whole conversation, even with contact center, for example, is human versus AI effort. A human is, if my main skill as a salesperson is being able to communicate, having genuine conversations with people, and figuring out what's going to be the best solution, that hour of time of doing a call summarization that to send a recap, which all that really is a, you just repeat what you just did for the last hour to put it on paper. I could be spending that time having additional conversation or exploratory conversation to progress a deal further. So I think maybe the nuance is, if you don't do anything with the extra time and you just play games on your computer instead and say, thanks, ChatGPT, for doing my job, I could maybe understand that. But I think doubling your efficiency with a tool feels to me almost the same way someone would run a business. You get good at running a business and you hire people and allocate so you can continue to grow your business.
Agreed. Yeah. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just like you're you're not getting credit, like you're not taking ownership of work that you didn't do. I don't know, but here's the thing. Well, there's thousands, like let's just take for example, you're applying for a job and you have AI help you with now, of course, you're going to go back and you're going to edit it and make it, if you're doing it the right way, you're going to make sure that you put that it's relevant to that particular job. But there's certain things that kind of go in every cover letter that you don't want to have the hassle to just do. But guess what? That stuff is already out there. You know what it's called? It's called a template. Nobody ever said boo about using a template. In fact, they would probably point you to websites that said, "Oh, there's lots of good templates out there for blah blah blah." What do you think AI is doing? Like it's just doing that but better.
Smarter and better. Exactly.
So like anyway, it baffles me that that's a sentiment that's out there, but yeah, so now I've recently I used to be like, "Oh yeah, I use ChatGPT all the time," and now I don't know if I should be saying that anymore, but
You might be better than me. I don't really care what people think about me in that sense. Not a chance. Like I let efficiencies and numbers speak for
all
themselves
right, fair
sometimes.
enough.
But that's a perfect analogy though of like an interview. AI can potentially help your resume to get you in the door, but AI will never get you the job if you can't interview. And if you not being able to interview is not being able to speak, not being able to articulate, be confident, all the things that AI could never teach. And that's why I think humans will always be needed for the same reasons that you've outlined already is the human element, the way that we interact as people will never go away, I don't think. I'd be curious, have you ever played around with ChatGPT on like something personal outside of work? Like I have some fun stuff I've tried. Like have you experimented with it?
Well, yeah, look, so you mentioned like that I'm trying to dabble. I've only done one, right? So I need to get on that. But the of just putting videos, little blurbs, little 1 minute videos out there about kind of what I've learned over the past 20 years about contact centers and customer service and stuff like that. That was my baseline. I have expertise in a lot of stuff, but it's the prompts that you use, right? So I put in a very detailed, like the prompt was probably 4 sentences long. It was very specific of what I asked it to do, but I asked it to give me basically build me a script for a 60-second video for YouTube about dot dot dot, and then I went into the details of what I wanted it to be about, and then just bam, I've got a script that probably would have taken me 30, 40, 50 minutes, and now 5 minutes later I have all that work. Now I can jump right into the editing and actually doing the video. So even from that standpoint, I don't feel like it's harming my expertise, or it's still my ideas. I'm just tied to organize them in a way that I would have done anyway, but just faster.
Yeah, I love that. I've definitely experimented it with that purpose. Like even just the stuff we do here for Mutual Connections. It's like I love to use it as a brainstorming tool. You just ask questions. Say like if this is what I'm already thinking of doing, what am I maybe not thinking about? And
Yes.
it lets you brainstorm and prompt. And then there's tools like even what we're recording on now, where I said like this thing's gonna record us. It's gonna help break stuff into clips a little bit. Like we get to edit it afterwards, but it makes really good stuff. And I think that's awesome. Could I share like a quick story of what I like to use ChatGPT for? So I've said it on some other episodes is I'm a huge philosophy geek. Like philosophy, psychology, religion, all of it. I love it. So what I've done is I will take notes when I'm like reading books about philosophy, or I'll take quotes from transcripts of videos I like, and I'll throw it all together and I'll say generate a summary and a short story that combines the elements of psychology, philosophy, and religion on the topic of human motivation, and it will pull sources from primary philosophers and psychologists, and it'll give like an actual essay style answer, and it's almost more interesting than reading some of the original books or content from the professionals themselves because of all the nuance that it can do. I'm such a nerd for it. AI has such cool use cases.
It's limitless. It's just crazy. The other day, my daughter, who she's graduated high school this year, she had I swear teachers are like scaring kids from using AI. So she was really scared, nervous about it, but I was like, "No, it's fine." But, like, so she had this, I don't know, probably 700 word essay that she had written. She just wrote. It was supposed to be 500, but she just kept burned through it, and it ended up being like 700. And she's like, "Ah, I gotta shave this down." So what would you normally do? You would go through and you would find out what's not relevant. Oh, here's an area where I used too many words, or where I was a little bit verbose. Let's get rid of that. Oh, here's a part where I duplicated my efforts. Let's get rid of that. And then eventually you'd arrive at a 500-word essay. Or you could paste that 700-word essay into ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, hey, make this a 500-word essay, but don't lose any of the meaning for blah blah. Like you can tell it to not do stuff and you can tell it to do stuff. Like it'll do whatever you want. And so she was really nervous, like, oh, but I'm using AI. I'm like, it's not my work. What are you talking about? It's not your work. You just spent 2 hours writing the 700-page essay. You're just telling ChatGPT to make it 500 instead. And but she was so nervous about like, but that's another just random use case of how powerful these models are.
We'll see where that goes, I think, with how teachers want students to use it, whether that's on a very elementary level, like literally elementary school kids, or up to the collegiate level. Because I know at Arizona State, which is where I went, I know a competitor of yours. You don't have to hate me for it, but there actually is a class there now, like AI in business. And in my last semester there was a class where I was required to use ChatGPT for the project, and they tailored the requirements to be much more difficult knowing we had full access to AI as it. So it let us, be more expansive in how we work and what we had to think about, knowing that we had a more advanced tool. And I think that's where it's going across any industry that uses AI. I hope that's the direction it goes, is don't cut people away from it, up the expectations and let people use it for any purpose they need and just get efficiency to be better across the board.
Jacob, I've never heard it laid out that that's genius. Like that is the perfect way to frame it. Like things will just get better. It's like it's an open book test. So
Yeah.
the questions are going to be a lot harder because the tool that you have access to is more powerful. So if anything, this is all good news for us if everybody started using it because the product, insert product, it doesn't matter what it is, insert product or service, it will get better if people are AI.
Yes, like even if we go back to contact center and like come full circle into that narrow conversation, imagine you take contact center reps and part of the training is maybe some form of human understanding. And instead of going, how would you respond when someone's angry? You could say something like, this customer, 32-year-old person, came from this environment. This was their previous experience. How would you handle it in this exact way? Use our AI bot to help you. And you start training quicker. You make people smarter. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the way it has to go. That's the optimistic side of me.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect example in the contact center realm is like we're so rigid. Well, maybe we used to be, but not so much anymore. But we're rigid. We're like scripts. Like, okay, well, when they say this, then you say this. And then if they say this, then this is how you respond. Or here's two options to how you respond. And what do we always say? We always say, okay, well, this is the script, but make it yours, right? Like, or like, but what if there was a thing that could literally just do that for us and we don't have to worry about the script? All we have to worry about is the prompt. So now rather than the output, we're not worried about the output. We know the output will be good. What we're worried about is a good input. What you're telling it to do has to be thoughtful and it can't be lazy. That we talk about being lazy. You can't be lazy with when you use AI. Because the more specific you are in what you tell it you want, the more specific it's going to return a really relevant answer.
Yeah, well said. No, that's great. Like if you're an industry expert on something and you wrote your prompt as a 5-page essay, it's going to give you the most industry relevant thing you've ever heard. But no, that's great. I like to normally kind of end these types of conversations. I'm going to give you one that's twofold, and I'd love to get an answer to both. If you had a sentence or a mantra that you're trying to kind of live by and work through right now, both on a business sense and then on a personal sense, what would you say those mantras are that you're trying to work on right now?
That's a really good question. I think with the stuff that's going on with me right now, and I already mentioned it kind of, but if you take care of people, then they'll take care of you. We live in a very cynical world nowadays, but I think kindness is a lost art and you can be and I think it's you can be firm and kind, right? Being kind doesn't mean you're like a soft person or whatever. Like it's just be kind, be like civil to people, and whatever you put out there, it's going to come back eventually. And so why not put out good stuff?
That's beautiful, and it actually true. There's one I normally don't actually give my own, but from what you said, I'm actually leaning into this myself. The word that I was pulling from what you just described, which was kind and, patient and graceful, but not and, like, firm, but not rude, it was the word meek, and I know I got that from the Bible where it's like the meek, like, is someone that's put up, but when I looked in the definition and like I said, I'm a big fan of psychology, but meek, it's not weak, it's being able to be calm and firm and kind, but have boundaries and not be a pushover, and I think that's a really, really important thing, so I'm really glad you said that, I agree.
Awesome.
So, no, that's great. I thank you so much for your time today. This was an amazing conversation. Anyone else, by the way, that you see on our page, feel free to reach out to them and ask if they want to do content with you. I know you're trying to get kind of the ball rolling. I bet there's people in the space. There's people that are always willing to do it, and you'll be able to pull content from it. So I'm so glad we could make the time.
It's awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. I'm glad we could connect finally.
Yeah, me too. Catch up with you soon.
All right, we'll see you.